Most golfers don't lose strokes with their driver. They lose them right next to the green. Not with a wild slice. Not with a top tee shot, but with a tiny embarrassing chip that should have been easy. The kind of shot where you're 5 yards off the green thinking this is fine, and somehow the ball either rockets past the hole or doesn't even reach the fringe. And after it happens, you don't blame skill. You blame nerves, or luck, or the lie. But here's the truth most golfers never hear. Almost everyone is making the same exact chipping mistake, and it has nothing to do with talent. It's a misunderstanding so common that even good players fall into it. And once it's locked into your brain, it quietly ruins your short game for years. Today we're breaking down the biggest chipping mistake almost everyone makes, why it feels logical, why it keeps failing, and how it sneaks into your game without you realizing it. Because once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Let's start with what golfers think chipping is. Most players believe chipping is a mini swing, same mechanics, same motion, just shorter. That belief alone causes more bladed shots, chunks, and deceleration than any other mistake in golf. Chipping is not a small full swing. It's a completely different skill, but because it looks similar, golfers instinctively apply full swing logic to a touch shot. And that's where everything breaks. The biggest chipping mistake almost everyone makes is trying to help the ball into the air. This happens subconsciously. You don't plan it. You don't think I'm going to flip my wrists. You just do it because the green feels close, the shot feels delicate, and your brain panics. So you scoop, you flick, you add loft. And the moment you try to lift the ball, the club head passes your hands. The bottom of the swing moves behind the ball, and contact becomes a coin flip. That's why chipping feels inconsistent even on good days. One chip comes out soft and perfect. The next rockets across the green. The third gets chunked 2 feet forward. Same technique, same club, same golfer, different timing. Because timing-based shots are fragile, and chipping should never be about timing. Here's the part that hurts to hear. Most golfers are terrified of hitting the ball low around the green. Low feels wrong. Low feels risky. Low feels like you'll scull it. So instead, players choose high-lofted clubs and try to manufacture height. But height is not your friend. Consistency is. Good chippers don't ask, how high should this go? They ask, where should this land? That's a massive difference. Amateurs focus on the hole. Good players focus on the landing spot. And this is where the mental error becomes physical. When you focus on the hole during a chip, your brain tells your hands to guide the ball, to finesse it, to control it mid-air. But you can't control the ball in the air. All control happens at impact. Now let's talk about wrists, because this is where the mistake becomes visible. Most golfers break their wrists aggressively during chips, either early, late, or both. Why? Because they're trying to create loft instead of allowing loft. Every wedge already has loft built in. You don't need to add more. In fact, adding more loft reduces margin for error. When the wrists flip, the club head overtakes the hands. That causes inconsistent strike and unpredictable spin. Sometimes you catch it thin, sometimes fat, sometimes perfect, but only by accident. That's why chipping feels unreliable under pressure. You're relying on perfect timing in a moment where your hands are already tense. And tension destroys touch. Now here's a moment to pause, because this applies to you even if you don't realize it yet. Think about your worst chips. They probably weren't huge disasters, they were almost okay. A chip that went 6 feet past instead of stopping. A chip that came up just short. A chip that felt like it should have been closer. Those shots don't scream bad technique. They whisper inconsistency. And inconsistency is exactly what scooping creates. Let's talk about setup, because the mistake starts before the swing. Most golfers set up to chip with their weight evenly distributed, ball centered, stance square, hands neutral. That setup looks reasonable. It feels athletic, and it quietly invites disaster. Why? Because chipping requires a forward low point. If your weight is centered, the bottom of your swing floats, and when the bottom floats, you're guessing where contact happens. Good chippers bias their weight forward, not dramatically, but intentionally. That forward pressure locks the low point in front of the ball, making clean contact almost automatic. But amateurs don't like that feeling. It feels awkward. It feels restrictive, so they avoid it. And then they wonder why they chunk chips. Another hidden problem. Deceleration. Most golfers slow down through impact on chips. They don't notice it, but it's there. Why does this happen? Because when you're trying to guide the ball, your brain fears hitting it too far, so it subconsciously applies the brakes. Deceleration increases loft, raises the bottom of the swing, and kills consistency. That's why the same chip can go different distances with the same swing length. Good chippers accelerate gently but continuously through the ball. Not aggressively, not violently, just smoothly. The ball gets in the way of the swing, not the other way around. Now let's talk club selection, because this is where ego sneaks in. Most golfers reach for a sand wedge or lob wedge for almost every chip. Why? Because they've been told that more loft equals more control. That's backwards. More loft equals less margin. Higher loft exaggerates mistakes. Slight face angle changes create big distance differences. Slight contact errors become dramatic results. Better players use less loft whenever possible. They choose bump and runs, low flights, predictable roll, not because they can't hit high shots, but because they don't need to. Amateurs avoid low chips because they think they look unskilled, but smart golfers choose shots that eliminate variables. And that's the theme of this entire mistake. Most golfers add variables instead of removing them. They add wrist action, they add loft, they add touch, they add timing, and every added variable increases the chance of failure. Now here's a line that might sting, but it's important. Chipping is not about soft hands, it's about stable hands. Soft implies floppy. Stable implies controlled. Great chippers have quiet wrists, stable hands, and predictable contact. The softness comes from tempo, not manipulation. Now let's address why this mistake survives for so long. Because sometimes it works. That's the worst part. You'll occasionally hit a perfect scooped chip that floats, lands soft, and stops near the hole. And your brain says, that's it, do that again. But that shot wasn't repeatable. It was lucky, and golf punishes luck eventually. In casual rounds, you get away with it. In competitions, money games, or tight matches, everything breaks. Hands get tighter, timing disappears, fear creeps in, and suddenly chipping feels terrifying. But here's the good news. This mistake is fixable, not with complicated drills, not with swing thoughts stacked on top of each other. It's fixable with a mindset shift. Stop trying to hit the ball up. Start trying to hit the ball forward. Let the loft do the work. Let the ground be your friend, not your enemy. Chipping becomes easy when contact becomes boring. That's what good short games look like. Boring. The ball pops off low. It lands where expected. It rolls out predictably. No drama. No guesswork. And here's the part most golfers never connect until it finally clicks. The best chippers you've ever watched don't look creative around the green. They look repetitive. Same setup, same rhythm, same flight window, over and over again. That repetition builds trust, and trust removes fear. Fear is what causes flipping. Fear is what causes deceleration. Fear is what causes panic right before impact. When you simplify chipping and accept a lower, more boring shot, your brain relaxes. You stop trying to steer the ball. You stop reacting mid-swing. You let the motion happen. That's when your short game quietly improves without forcing it. So if you've always thought chipping success comes from talent or touch, let that idea go. The truth is simpler and better. Great chipping isn't something you're born with. It's something you stop overcomplicating. And once you do, those easy shots finally start feeling easy. And here's the final thing most golfers need to hear. You don't need touch to chip well. You need structure. Touch develops after consistency, not before it. So if chipping has always felt stressful, unreliable, or fragile, it's not because you lack feel. It's because you've been taught the wrong priority. The biggest chipping mistake almost everyone makes isn't technical, it's conceptual. They think chipping is about finesse. It's not. It's about control. And once you stop trying to help the ball finally starts helping you. That's when chipping stops being scary. And that's when golf gets a lot more fun.